Oh man, what a stressful start to the day that was. Is this gonna work? Yeah. Whoo boy! Right, I only have an hour now before I start work instead of 90 minutes, but hopefully we can crunch through at least one exercise. I don't even know what happened there. I tried to go live and it just flat out. Something has went wrong. 500 error. No logs. And the only way I fixed it was just by... I actually fixed it by deleting the cache. And the reason it took me so long to get back on is I had to like redo all the settings. So hopefully it's working. I'm just going to pull up the live stream and just see how it looks on YouTube. And then I'll get started. So apologies if it's a little bit laggy or blurry or anything like that. I basically just hit the first set of settings that worked. So I'll refine it back over time. That looks okay. So let's get started. So last time I had a power cut as well. So there's a swathe of issues affecting me, but I will get through this. It really doesn't want to learn Zod validation. I did the schema validation in the last one. So we previously had manually created the errors. So if the form didn't submit correctly and values were missing, then we just hard-coded error messages to appear. We're now using the Zod library to do that for us, which has been awesome so far. I'm looking forward to actually using it a little bit more. And we finished on this conform action utils exercise. I'm just going to take a couple of moments just to refresh my memory as to what the actual problem is. I'm going to make sure I've got the right exercise open. It should be here. And I'm just going to check everything looks okay. So we've got the exercise. This should be running. And yeah, all good. Okay, so we're going to use a third-party library called conform. Having to create the object out of form data is troublesome. We can call object from entries form data, and that'll work out our simple case. But this doesn't work for nested objects. Cool. So we need this conform to Zod, which I think I've just reset this to the base example. Yeah, cool. So is there a link to the conform library here? There we go. Of course there is. Of course there is. Ah, cool. Just leaving a note for later. Conform guide API Zod. Let's just go to the root. So okay, so that's there. Is it parse with Zod? API Zod. Ah, okay, okay. So is that going to 404? Right, cool. Schema that returns an overview of the submission by parsing the form data with the provided Zod schema. All right, so the submission parses with Zod. It takes a payload and some options. I'm guessing the payload is going to be the form data that will come through form submission. And I'll just learn about the options as I go. They're mostly optional, so Let's just learn the ones we actually need. Here's the relevant part of the example. So let's grab this. Let's find my code. There we go. For remix, the classic import ordering. Should occur before remix run. Oh, really? Okay, here we go. Get field set constraint and parse. Let's find our action. So we don't need this just now. Here's our action. I'm just going to get rid of all of these. Oh, there's quite a lot here. So this is what we added last time, right? This is the Zod schema. We're saying that the title must be a string with a max length of 100 characters. Content, similar deal. String, max length. Content, max length. Swap this for parse from conform, passing the form data as the first argument, and for the options, provide the schema as the schema. Okay, that kind of makes sense. So our submission, I'm just keeping this below. Let's just comment this out for now. You want to run parse, yeah. And we want to pass the form data as the first argument, and we want to pass an options object second, schema property. What type should this be of interest? Any. Classic. How is that? And let's just take a look here. Let's just refresh this. And then let's hit submit. Result is not defining. Ah, that's because I'm silly. Let's just bring that back in. Okay, so that's submitted. Here we go. So now we've got a submission. Let's just make sure there's no other console logs. There we go. Just going to bring this up a little bit. Oop. Where's my log? Here it is. And we can ignore this reference error because that was the previous example. So we've got a submission key here. The intent is to submit. We have a payload and our title and the content. This has an empty error object. And the value matches the payload. Okay. I'll read the docs again in a second. So let's try an invalid title. And to do that, annoyingly, I'm going to have to take out the native HTML validation. Let's do the title. We've got a default value. It's required. Let's take out the max length. And now I should be able to do this. Ah. That's weird. Is my Zod not working? Let's just do this. Just because I've installed this. Edit this. Make sure this is working. Oh, it's a Andrew. taken out the maximum length. So instead of removing characters, we should probably reduce it. I'm just going to reduce that down to 10 characters. And there we go, right? So the string must contain at most 10 characters. The reason I had to put that out is it just wouldn't let me type any more characters. So by comment it out, we removed the native HTML validation. Alright, so this is now erroring. So what does a submission log say? Error, title is an array. I'm guessing that's just going to be a string. So there's no value here. The intent is to submit. Our payload is as before. Our error is now populated. The title key has an array, which I'm going to guess is just a string saying string must contain at least 10 characters. Let's just dive a little deeper here. Curious. So submit that, and that should work. And then I'm just gonna. Oh, where is it on here? I don't want that. It's the clear button. This should error. There we go. And here's this title array just deconstructed. So the title is an array with the error message that we get. So that's cool. So at least the submission is working now. If the submission's intent isn't submit, this will happen if conform is validating. Okay, so if we wanted to validate on blur, we can use submission.value. Yeah, so this is what we looked at earlier. If an error object is populated, then there is no submission value. This would be undefined. So if there's no submission value, then we're going to need to tweak this, and let's just look at this shape of this. Submission error. So this will be I wonder if it just does this flatten automatically. Replace result.error.flatten. Ah, we want to send the entire thing. Okay. Weird that. Okay. Kind of strange that we have to send the entire submission instead of submission.errors. Let's remove this log because it's no longer required. And then let's remove this result. If there were no errors, we can get the type safe values from submission.value. Okay. Submission. And we can guarantee. So that's an optional object, but we can guarantee that that exists. Excuse me, I've not had coffee this morning. We can guarantee that exists because we have a conditional statement here. So we're saying if this doesn't exist, therefore this does. So we get it type safe, which is nice. So now we should have a string and a string. Cool. Is that because we're going to pass the entire submission.errors? Instead of action data errors, field errors, we'll use action data.submission. Yeah, there we go. Still doesn't understand. Ah, that's the yeah. Okay. Hold on. That's what we're doing. So that makes more sense. We're just going to return the entire submission rather than submission.errors. Instead of using this, we'll use action data submission. Which is an object, and then that will have the schema properties as keys, I imagine, and then an array of strings. So instead of action data.errors.form errors, we're going to use submission error. It's weird and it will change. That sounds fun. By specifying the error path as the root, this message will be treated as a form level error and populated on the client side as form.error.
I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Every day, once a day, give yourself a present. Don't plan it, don't wait for it, just let it happen. It could be a new shirt at the men's store, a cat nap in your office chair, or 2 cups of good, hot, black coffee. Like this. A present. Like Christmas.
Okay. Well, that looks like a problem for later. So for now, let's just so our form errors. Oh my god, I can't spell. Form errors is going to be replaced by error, which will be an object because we want it to be the root property. Oh no. Cool. So that will be an array of strings or null. So now, if we refresh this, submit, then we get our error validation. Should be no logs now. Yeah, nice. Cool. Okay, so we're not using this yet. Here's the relevant part of the example from the background info we saw earlier. So we're not using this. So let's just get rid of it. That should be the completed example. So we've swapped result, which was doing a safe parse using Zod. We're going to use the conform library by parsing the form data. So we're going to parse the form data and we're going to use our Zod schema validation as our schema. Okay. And instead of the result.success, we're going to check for submission.value, where we can determine if the submission was valid. If it's not, we're going to return a JSON object, the status of error, and the submission object, which means there will be no submission value. It will instead be an error object. That error object, we've got the field errors here. So the field errors contains action data submission.error. When we logged the submission object on an invalid submission, the error object was populated with the title key, which contained an array of strings. So that's what that would use, and that makes sense for our field errors. So that makes sense. And instead of action data errors.form errors, we're using this crazy property. Excuse me. We'll use the action data submission error empty string property, which is for root level form errors. But it's commented, and so we'll just leave that for just now. I'm going to add this native validation back in, and we should be good here. Could you update our form to use this in the action? This will require a few changes in the UI as well, because errors are slightly different. I'm guessing that was what we just changed here. Why do I suppose all that information is necessary? Sure, but what I am going to do is take Ezekiel's advice and try and use console logs less. So let me just quickly remove that max length again. We'll refresh this. Let's go to the network tab, close it out, submit this. So here's our payload that we're sending. So there's our form data object. This is the title we want to send, and the content. Can I bump this up a little bit? We don't really need anything else. What was on the response here? Cool, so here's a submission object on the response. I was just cheating earlier and logging it to this instead. The payload, well, we know why the intent submits there, because it's possible to validate on Blur. So that's why we need that. What was the actual question? Why do you suppose all that information is necessary? We need to know, we covered this one. This is for validation. Why do we need to know the payload? Maybe if you wanted to include it in your error messaging. So someone, if it was an email address, you could say that your actual email address wasn't valid, rather than just having it generic. And the error object, you could have multiple errors, right? It could not contain the letter 1 and also be 10 characters. So you need the entire array rather than a single string. What's this? Oh, validation. So there's a schema. Parse with Zod, passing the schema through. Using that? Don't think we are. Maybe we'll get to that. Let's jump back. Right, final exercise. Oh, I might actually get this in before 11, which I'm stoked about. All right. Set this to the playground. I always have a couple of issues with this, so my fail-safe is to stop and restart the app every time I go into a new exercise. Okay, so I've now got conform utils. I'm just going to close these out. Cool. As far as okay. The back end is only one piece of this, so this is like we're going to move on to the UI stuff now. We now want to use conform to help us build out the form in the UI, and we're going to use conform to React for some similar utilities, and the conform to Zod for the Zod schema validation. Ooh. To convert the Zod schema into HTML validation attributes so we can delete those. Let's go. Once we've done that, we no longer need to duplicate the validation logic in the UI. That's cool. It's truly consistent between UI and server. That I like. Okay, big fan of that. Here's the relevant bits of the example we've had in our background info. Okay, so let's open the file that we need. It's such a nice feature. Boop. Here are the relevant bits from the example we had in our background info for this exercise. So we're now grabbing this. My mouse has gone super laggy. Man, I don't know what's happened to my PC in the recent weeks, but it is not happy with me. Okay, so we're going to grab both of these. We're going to use conform to React for some utilities and conform to Zod for that, right? So we've got our login form. I'm in miscellaneous, that doesn't feel correct. So we'll just get rid of that. I'm pretty sure we need to be in here. Yeah, those are conform to Zod. Export default function, login form. You can delete this hook. Conform will handle this for us. There's a lot of delete comments here. Okay. We don't need the form ref anymore. Okay. We don't need the form ID anymore. Okay. Delete all of this. That's good times. Yeah, that's cool. Big fan of that. Actually, instead of deleting, I'm just going to comment out. Delete the ID and then no validate. Okay, which means we no longer need this. Delete the rest of these props. And I'm just going to move these down. Let's go here. Let's just move that to the bottom. There we go. Do I maybe need the tab index? Maybe. The method is going to be a post on the form. We've got our Tailwind class names. Here we're going to add form props. But we don't have form. What have we got here? Action data login form. Okay. It's because we need to use the actual hook here. So on the login form here, they're using the use form hook. They're passing an ID. They're using that get field set constraint from conform to Zod. Passing the schema as an argument. Last submission is action data submission. On validate. Interesting, that's on here. So that's not, that's in the client. So it's not up, it's not in the action. Okay, let's start building. So const deconstruct this array. We want form and fields. We're going to use form hook. Use form. Takes huge object. The ID is going to be, I can't remember what it was called. No editor. There we go. Just keep it consistent. Constraint is going to be get field set constraint. We can add that back in. Our schema is going to be editor schema. Seems happy with that. The last submission is going to be our action data submission, which will either be valid or invalid, because it'll either have a value or an error property. Action data might not exist. On validate, passing form data as an argument. I've never seen it written like this. I'm going to return parse function, pass our form data, and the schema. And I'm guessing that's just a fancy way of doing that and passing a function with the same name. I want to check actually. Function on validate. Yeah, so I'm guessing that's the same thing. Okay, so now we have an unused form and fields index. Element, sorry. Here we're just going to spread form.props. here I'm just gonna start with a console log. Right. I could use debugger here, but I kind of like just seeing it in the logs to begin with. That is not a good start. Is it just a broken build? Okay, let's fix this first. So we're going to delete all of this. And on our form, we're going to spread form.props. So our form's going to have errors props. It's got its own ref. Form error, error ID, ID. Okay, so let's just spread form.props. Here, so I can remove this. Actually, just pop this up. Replace the hard-coded note title for the field's title ID. So we're going to remove this, and we're going to say fields. Do we get type safe? Yeah, title, and then ID. That's nice. This can all just be removed. And the input itself, we're going to spread 1, 2, 3. We're going to conform. That's really annoying where that is. Conform. Should that be conform? Conform input. Fields title. Are we grabbing that from here? Yeah, okay. So conform here is coming from conform to React. Conform input fields.title. Interesting. Have the docs here. Let's conform remix. Get form props, use form. Let's conform to React. This parse with Zod. UI libraries, maybe. What we got here? The error list. So actually, let's just do our content now. So we're going to do the same here. This is going to be fields content.id. And then we're going to get rid of all of this. And then we're going to use that conform input and then fields.content. So that's the input setup and the label as well. So let's just do the errors now. So let's get the ID from the fields title error ID. Fields title error ID, and our errors are going to be fields.title errors, which will be an array of strings, I'm guessing. It does exist. Yeah, there we go. Array of strings are undefined. Nice. So we can do the same here. So this will be, the ID will be fields, title, error ID. The errors will be fields. No, it won't. It will be content. And then this will be fields.content.errors. This one is our root level one. So we can get form.errorID and form.errors for our top level form errors. This will now just be form ID as well this. And that should be us. So now I should be able to start it. This is now client side, so we'll open this up. Let's check our console. Let's edit. It's interesting that that's empty now. Is that a bug? That looks like something's not working there, doesn't it? Data is no longer being used. Use form. Does it have a default value? There we go. Default value should be an object representing the schema. So we'll just add that in. Default value is going to be data. So that data is going to use loader data and should return the note's title and content here, which should conform to our schema. Although I wonder if that note key is going to mess with something. Data.note. It's weird I didn't get the, yeah, there we go, data.note. Because now it's following an object with a title and content key. So that should match up. And now if I hit edit, then we're good. Okay. So now we've got form with our ID. Error ID is no editor error, which is the top level. Error is undefined. There are no errors. Here's our props. Let's bring this up. Quite happy with console log here because nothing's really going to change. I just want to see the end result. I don't need to see it really changing over time. So this is now being done and adding native elements to this. So actually I want to inspect this. What have we got? So we've got a max length attribute has been added. So we had this, right? That's what that was in before. We're now doing conform input fields.title. Is that the get field set constraint? I imagine that's what this is doing. Yeah. So this get field set constraint is able to dive in and see that the title is a z.zod string, and if we look at our schema, it's a string with a max length. Whoop. And because it has that, this is able to infer that it should have a max length property of 100. And I just want to confirm that by doing this. So let's replace it with min. And if we inspect this, it now has a min length of 100. That's very nice. So one schema is controlling both our server validations and our native HTML input. That is very nice. I approve. Okay, let's go. What else is on that actually? So let's look at this. We've got the max length. Autofocus is set, but we had to keep that in, right? Yeah, there we go. It has an ID of no editor title, which is going to be the form ID, and then the field ID concatenated, I imagine. Name is title. It's got form on it. Yep. Cool. That has a max length of 10. Oh, yeah. Oops. Let's refresh this. Okay, so I just want to make sure this isn't still min length. So we're now back to max length of 100. I'm now going to drop that to 10. Reset that. String must contain at most 10 characters. Nice. So that's kind of interesting because if you just do a max length, let's try and add this in quickly. Let's just add a normal input here. So say input, type is text. I think that's all I need here, right? All right. Let's just make sure this is here. There it is. Beautiful. So now I should just be able to do that one here, right? I'm going to add in the max length here. I'm going to say 10. Max length of 10 characters. So this is native HTML validation. Refresh this. It won't let me type beyond 10 characters. If I was just to manually add this, in fact, let's spread this, and I just need to make sure I add it here. Just so it overrides anything that's set via conform. Here we go. It doesn't let me go beyond the 5 characters. It did initially because the default value was set, and there's no way of controlling that. But this won't let me go beyond 5 characters. If I now do this and refresh, this is letting me, no, it doesn't. Maybe it was just the default value. Okay, that's fine. So it won't let me go beyond the 10 characters. So you won't see the form validation input, but that's fine because the native HTML validation is doing its job. You don't need to see the error message if it doesn't let you type here. The reason the Zod validation is there is because if someone was just in here, they could edit this, they could see this max length and think, nah, I want 1,000 characters. And now they can type freely. And now if I hit submit, now the Zod validation will kick in. Let's say, not today. I love this. I just haven't had coffee yet, and it's 10 to 11 in the morning, so I'm not full of energy. But this is really, really nice. I love synchronizing the server validation with native HTML. Big fan. All right, that's the pretty sweet spot. I'm just going to leave that. I think I can close this. And I think I've done with this exercise. Almost. Like I planned it. Where's the... Terrible. So let's just fill this out quickly. And professional web form, skill validation, what'd you learn? Learns how to sync server. Did we learn? Server validation logic with UI native HTML validation. How effective was it? Yeah, it's great actually. Conform to Zod. Ugh. Hey, done. Done. Mark as complete. Good times. Is it just the final thing that I need to mark as complete? I think so. Alright, that was pretty short and sweet, but there's no point in starting the file upload because I have 10 minutes left. Sorry that was about 30 minutes late in getting started. Yeah, the perils of live tech demos. But we got it fixed, and hopefully I can start at 9:30 on the dot next week. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.